All righty, what is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel for another market update. Hope everybody had a lovely day. And with that being said, let's dive into the TA. All right, guys, we got a pretty ugly day today. Down 3% on the NASDAQ, down over 2% on the S&P 500. VIX did end up bouncing from that 28.32 spot that we talked about in yesterday's video. Volatility was on the rise. Well, it could have been on the rise. As we saw today, it was on the rise. That was the thumbnail in the last video. Game plan worked out perfect. Picture perfect over here. SPY, QQ, NQES, everything that we laid out in yesterday's video. We talked about it. We're talking the break and retest under 18674 over here on the NASDAQ. Over here on ES, we're talking 351.75 to 379. We're talking break and retest off there in the 4-hour EMA cloud. And then, you got what looks to be 12 hours of that. And then you broke down, all right? And you came right down to our target down there. We were watching for 5280 down to 5257. You did end up having the bottom marked out over there at 5257. I am not sure if this is going to be a higher low, but this is the spot that we identified. If buyers are going to defend for a higher low, it's going to be in between 5257 and 5295. That is exactly what we got cooking over here. Doesn't exactly look all that bad over here, consolidating here on the hourly time frame. If you do give a little pop here, all right, get above 5317, you have a shot at back testing 5351. Now, like I said, we do not know. We do not know if this is going to be the higher low. We did know is we were right at heavy resistance. We were rejecting the 21 EMA, and we did have that 2-day range. So we were watching for price to break down over there. We knew what we were paying attention to. And, we're just going to have to see where we are going from here because we don't know if it's going to be a higher low or not. I pointed out, you have these very bullish weekly candlesticks last week that suggested if we were to get that pullback, that the probability suggests it's going to be a higher low pullback before the bounce. I think that bounce would then take us up the 200 DMA. I am not sure if that's going to be the case. Now is the point in time where you are going to sit on your hands and you're going to wait to see what we get next. All right. In the Discord, I'll provide you with 1 to 2 option trades a day. I'll give you an NQES game plan, and then you can, trade with me live, and you can see my execution on that over there. But as of right now, guys, you don't really have much you're looking for into tomorrow, except if buyers are going to defend, it's going to be right over here. Now we're going to make our way back over here to SPY. That candle high right here, this is wrong. You didn't actually end up filling that gap right there. I don't know why it's, saying you got all the way up to 537.89. You did not. All right. But you are down here in the golden pocket here. We're going to come down to the hourly time frame. Hourly RSI was oversold. Doesn't mean you're just going to start bouncing back. But you did find buyers right off of that 0.618 Fibonacci retracement from this whole most recent move up. All right. Now, if you want to see this thing move back up, all right, you're going to want to get above 529.71 tomorrow. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is what we're looking at. Okay, you had calls coming into the close over here. I'm not saying these guys are going to get paid, but, if I had to guess, you are going to get a little, at least a dead cat bounce into this area over here, 529.71. Or, we get the big gap down over here. We take out 518.36. We start coming down to 510.27. And if you don't hold there, hold on to your hats. We're coming down to a new low. Now, you want to talk about some cool stuff, all right? We'll talk about it. Weekly RSI hit oversold territory. You came, hey, you got your butt up there, okay? Now, if you take out this low, you come down over here. You undercut the most recent low. You test 479.98, and you come a little bit lower. Maybe you undercut over here. Maybe you come to 450 even. You are going to be at the 200 weekly moving average. That is what marked your 2022 bottom. That is what marked your 2020 bottom. That is what marked your 2018 bottom. That's what marked your 2016 bottom. That is what marked your 2011 bottom. It can get ugly. I'm not saying it's not going to get ugly, but we are very likely going to see long-term investors step in here at the 200 weekly moving average. So I'm telling you right now, if we get the scenario where we come down here, we are going to be buyers down here. There is nothing that we can do other than place the probabilities in our favor and trade in that direction. All right. We are traders of probability. Okay. At the end of the day, yes, we trade these charts. but it is about the probability. If you come down here, you have a weekly bullish divergence on the RSI. You're going to be breaking, retesting off of 479.98. You have the 0.618 fibs and down here at 450. You're going to have another key level over here at 459.44. And you have that oh so mighty 200 weekly moving average. You're going to see people calling for a crash. I'm going to tell you here first the game plan before it actually comes down. All right, people want to call things after. We don't do that here on this channel. We do everything beforehand, right or wrong. I get things wrong. It is what it is. Okay, but I will do my best to steer us in the right direction. So, you know, it's either you're going to be bouncing back from here, or if you lose 518.36 tomorrow, that is when things don't look too good over here on SPY. That is when you can come down to 510.27, and then from there, bottoms up. All right, we are coming down to the lows, baby, and then we come down to that 200 weekly moving average. Everyone and their mothers gets all bearish again, and we're gonna be buying hand over fist. That is the point when I am, you know, I'm just gonna, at that point, we're going all in on like 5 to 6 month out calls if we see that opportunity down here at the weekly moving average down here. That is that. All right, risky or not, I don't care. Okay, that is the game plan. You guys can do whatever you want with your money. No financial advice will be given here on this channel. But like I said, we are traders of probability. This market is not going to reward impatience. It is going to reward patience, discipline. And if that is not you right now, you have a chance to level up. You have a chance to step up to the plate. And if you don't want to do so, the market is going to take your money. I gave you the trade plan yesterday. It's up to you to execute. I'll do my best to do so moving forward, but it is definitely up to you to execute. And if you are sitting there just mashing buttons because you want to get a dopamine hit, it's not going to work. Okay, you have to be precise. On the downside, 524.98, lose that level, 518.36, lose that level, 510.27. Bad things happen underneath there. We're taking out lows. On the upside over here on SPY, we have 529.71, which this is the area. If you backtest it and you fail here and you take out this 524.98 low, well, it's not low, but you take out this support, okay? You're probably coming down here and you're probably going to break it, all right? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is the exact spot where sellers are going to defend tomorrow, maybe tomorrow morning, if we get that move up into it. Now, if you can get over 529.71, we're talking 533.50 and then 536.81. Then, of course, we got this area up here, but we're not going to talk about that yet. That would be a $15 move tomorrow. We don't know if that's going to be the case, but we did know we're probably coming down here. This is where buyers are going to defend if it's going to be a higher low. And then we go back up if that's going to be the case. If not, we're losing 518.36. We know odds are we're going to lose 510.27 and come back down here. Or, you know, you find a bottom here. But either way, play it level by level in the market, intraday. Like I said, you know, in my Discord, I will give you every single night a trade plan, 1 to 2 option trades for the following day. So you could be in and out and grab your money. And I'll give you the game plan for NQ and ES at night and then also in the morning. And then you could just trade with me and, you know, follow my execution if you really want to. But it is definitely up to you to execute in this market. All right. But that's SPY. We'll come over here to QQQ. QQQ, guys, it also came down to the spot where you're paying attention to at 443.06. Buyers lost there. You found buyers off the 0.786 fib, and you did end up reclaiming there. Now, as we can see on the hourly, we're just consolidating here. This is going to be your area to get over. We're going to come over the 4-hour time frame. Just like SPY had its spot, this is where sellers are going to defend. Maybe you get a wick here, and then you close back underneath. If you get a bearish candlestick on the 4-hour time frame here, okay, maybe the 130 close tomorrow, you come up here, you put in an upper wick here, you close with a bearish candlestick like that, you know you're probably coming back down here, but then once you return back down to 443.06, you know the probabilities are suggesting you are going to lose it. All right, so that is what we are paying attention to tomorrow on the upside. If you can get above 450.82, we're paying attention to 452.63, 455.59, and 460.07. On the downside, if you lose 443, like I said, all right, follow the yellow brick road. It doesn't have to be this way. For all I know, we're going to gap down. We don't know, all right? But NQ up 0.3%. ES is up 0.2% over here in the overnight session. We'll have to see how this goes. But, you know, if you come back down to this low, guys, you lose 443.06, you come back to today's low, bad things happen. You're coming down here, okay? come down to 432.63, and as we can see, this isn't a strong support by any means. If you come back down here, it's very likely that you're going to lose it. That's just where you can get a reaction, maybe get some action like this, okay, and then come back down to 423.45. Same idea on SPY over. You don't want to give up this area, do you? You're making a new low. But you want to see another thing cool over here? I got you. All right, weekly 200 MA sitting right over here around 387.98 support in between there and the 0.618 fib. What is 387.98, you ask? That is over here. That was the July 2023 high over here where you consolidated in a bull flag and then you broke out and we went on this massive bull run. Okay, this is where, you know, I don't know how people could really be bearish on this. I'm going to be, I remember over here, I just remember being bullish on this. I was like, how are people bearish on it? All right, you're right underneath all-time highs consolidating in this bullish manner. That's that. All right, so you come back down. I can promise you, long-term investors, I know things are bad, but that is guaranteed where they start nibbling every single time. Maybe it takes a little while, but you are going to get the reactions down there, okay? You got in 2020 marking the bottom. You got in 2022 marking the bottom. What also marked the bottom? You had that bullish divergence over here before your August rip, and then after the August rip over there, you remember this faked out a lot of people. Do you remember that? I do remember that. And then you came down to new low, but what happened? You had the larger bullish divergence here, and it correlated over here with the weekly 200 MA. So we're going to have to see how this goes. If we just shoot down like this, come right here, we don't test that. All right, maybe we get that August 2022 style rally over here, and then we come down to new low, you know, months later over here, a few months later. Yeah, you know, that took 2 months to develop over here after that rally. All right, and then maybe we're down here and you bottom out right over here by the 200 MA as well as the 0.618 fib. We're going to have to see how this goes. We will take it as we go. But you know, that's the longer term. It's not long term, of course, but you know, that is you know, if we that's the game plan over here on the weekly chart. That's what we should be saying. All right, you're gonna have the weekly bullish divergence sitting there. If you come back down there, I'm telling you, you're gonna have people calling for market crash. And if people think you haven't already started having that, I don't really know what to tell you. All right, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. You got the weakness over here, made the lower high. If you take out right over here, if you take out 432.63, what happens? You have a lower high, okay, followed by a lower low. At that point, you're likely coming down to 423.45, and then you come down to a new low. You test that 408.71 spot again. You likely take that out. All right, so that's your game plan over here on SPY and QQQ. We're going to come over to Mr. VIX. What do we got cooking over here, guys? You do got the break and retest off that 28.32 spot we pointed out. All right, you had the 4-hour RSI getting, you know, relatively oversold here. We were looking for it to come a little bit lower, down to 36 at least. It did not. Okay, it did not. But you did end up having a picture-perfect reaction off 28.32. All right, so, you know, above 35.17, this thing could start busting a move. We'll come on the weekly time frame. Does that look like something that's bearish to you? If we get an ugly close to the week, VIX is set up with a hammer candlestick. It's probably going to be sitting up here 35 to 38. And at that point, you got a green hammer candlestick going into the following week. That's not something that usually gets faded. All right, so we're going to have to see how this goes. But if that is the case, you know, actually, I'll just show the meta chart. Unprecedented times, guys, which that's why, you know, I'd suggest, hey, if you are an options trader, if you are just trading this market in general, stick to the intraday options, stick to the intraday trading. You know, I could have at least held one of my 4, you know, meta puts over here and had a runner go like 200%. But at the same time, we don't know that was going to happen. We don't. Okay. Like in this market, anything we can see are crazy moves on both directions. But does this meta chart look bullish to you? You're already past the golden pocket. You're probably about to take out the low. So keep these things in mind, guys. Big picture point of view. We got some looks over here that they're not too hot. All right, so we'll just give a little update on yesterday's trade idea over here on Nvidia. All right, you did end up breaking retesting. All right, you broke down over, well, not break and retest, but you retest the 4-hour EMA cloud over there. Ideally, we were going to come up and retest 107.48, reject, and then once you came back down to 104.77, you knew it was likely going to break down, and from that point, follow the yellow brick road. We were going to be looking for the move down to 100. All right. That did end up, you know, coming pretty close to target there. I know we're off by, 30 cents. I'm sorry, 30, 40 cents. Oh, well, But you know, that's the thing over here. Now we are again at that spot. Like if you're gonna put in these higher lows, it's gonna be done right where we are, because if you go a little lower, you give up 97.40, it's looking terrible. All right, so that's the video over here. All right, the second one was Apple. All right, and Apple over here, you did end up coming right down to the 0.618 fib at that 194.78 spot we mentioned. And you know, this is again, you know, buyers are going to defend. It's going to be right around here. You're not going to revisit down here, because if you do revisit 186, you're probably going to break it. Okay, that's just how that would go. Over here, guys, you got the higher high. This could be a higher low. You know, it's not like you didn't make the lower high over here like you did on the indices. So at this point, you know, this is where you got the confidence going on. This is where buyers are going to defend here, and you can get the move back up to 198.23 to 201.16. I discussed the options in yesterday's video. All right, whether you want to do, you know, April 25 calls and you catch that $5 move, you know, at that point you're talking 70 to 90%, depending on what strike you're at. You want the May calls, we're talking like a 50% move by the time you get back up here to 201. Like by the time you see a $5 move, right? So it really is up to your personal preference. It's up to you if you want to execute on it, if you want to pull the trigger. I will just identify the areas to do so, and you can pick and choose them. All right, so that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm just going to come over here. We'll end it over here on NQ and ES. All right, it does look like you're popping back from this area over here. You got to get over 504.50 over here on NQ. That is where you broke down from. And above there, you have 18,674. That is where, well, that was the original breakdown spot that we were watching over here for the break and retest off of for that move down there. I know, you know, you had a lot of this going on here, and that's what I was saying in the beginning, guys. It's not a market that's going to reward early entries. It's not a market that is going to reward your lack of discipline. If that is not you, it is time for you to step up to the plate. If you're going to be a trader, this market is going to teach you in a painful manner, or it's going to teach you in a good manner, how to execute properly and how to have that discipline. You waited for the breakdown over here. You got the break and retest we pointed out off of 67475. You could have taken the early short over there, but at the end of the day, you also had this head and shoulders kind of look to you, and you could have also taken it when Powell, you know, started doing this whole thing over here, and just, yeah, they literally waited on it. All right, they waited on it. You had like a 1% range up until then, and then you broke down, okay? Just follow along, level to level price action, guys. You got this. But I'm telling you, it is your time to step up to the plate if you are not that disciplined trader I just talked about. This market is ruthless. This market is going to take your money, and if you're not that guy, I'm telling you, wait for the long opportunity on the weekly time frame that I just pointed out. Wait for the test of the weekly 200 MA. You're going to have a really good time buying down here. There's going to be a crap ton of opportunities for you to get that sweet, you know, 2 to 3x. Just honestly, but buying, you know, we're talking 6 month out calls. You're probably going to have one heck of a rip. I'm not saying it's going to result in something like that, but it is probably going to result something like that. And even if we come back down to the low, you're probably still going to have this right here, 20%. I'm not saying that's going to happen. You are down 26%. If you come all the way down here, that literally brings you back to where we are right now. That's a big freaking move. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. With that being said, please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. I really appreciate what you guys been doing, pumping the channel. I don't really know why we haven't been getting subscribers recently, but, you know, I will do my best to please the people. If you are enjoying it, please just remember to scratch my back. I will do my best to scratch your back for absolutely no cost to you every single night here on this channel. And with that being said, love y'all, appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.